Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, 31a of Maseches Taanis, the final half Amud, before we celebrate the completion of the Masechta. The Mishnah had spoken about how there were 2 days of the year, there was no Yantif, no holiday in Israel, like the Mishnah said. I'll just read it. There was no Yantif in Israel like the 15th of Av and like Yom Kippur. And what would happen on those days? That day, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out in borrowed white garments. The Mishnah said. I'm reading back the Mishnah Chavav on base 26b. They would go out and always borrow the white garments in order not to embarrass anyone who didn't have. Everybody borrowed from someone else. And it said, Kol hakelim te'unin tvila, and they would immerse all the clothes in the mikvah before wearing them in case the person they borrowed from them had been a tameya, had been ritually impure. So our Gemara tells us, he quotes the Mishnah Shebahem Benos Yerushalayim Chule. On that day, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out. We're about halfway down the Amud. The Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Bas melech sha'eles mi bas Kohen Gadol. The daughter of the king would borrow from the daughter of the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. So even the people at the highest echelons of society, they would also borrow. Bas Kohen Gadol mi bas Gan. The daughter of the Kohen Gadol would borrow from the daughter of the assistant Kohen Gadol. Ubas Gar mi bas Meshuach Melchama. And the daughter of the assistant Kohen Gadol would borrow from the Bas Meshuach Melchama, which is another high-ranking Kohen. He's the Kohen that was in charge of the inspirational talks when they would go out to war. Ubas Meshuach Melchama, the daughter of the one anointed for war, that Kohen, would borrow mi bas Kohen Ediot, would borrow from a regular Kohen. V'chol Yisrael sha'alin zeh mizeh, and all of Israel would borrow, all the girls would borrow their clothes from each other, k'dei shelo yisbayesh es mi she'ein lo, in order not to embarrass one who didn't have. This way, everyone could find someone to borrow from, and that way there would be nobody embarrassed that they didn't have a nice dress or robe or whatever they were wearing when they went out to dance in the fields on Yom Kippur and on the 15th of Av, on Tu B'Av. Fine. So a beautiful idea. Then the Gemara continues, it says, Kol hakelim te'unin tvila, as we mentioned, they would immerse all the clothes in the mikvah, each one before they wore them. Amar Rabbi Elazar said, Afil mikupalim munachim bekufsa. Even if the one that you borrowed had been folded up and left in a box for who knows how long, and was b'chezkas, that we can assume that it wasn't tameh, but still, even that they would still be tovel. They would still immerse it, just to everybody was doing the same thing. They don't want anybody to stand out and be embarrassed. And then, B'nos Yisrael yotzos v'cholos b'kram. The daughters of Israel would go out and they would dance in the vineyards. Tana, and it was taught, Misha ein lo isha nifna l'sham. They would say whoever doesn't have a wife should come. This was the ultimate singles event, where the single men would come and they would see the women and they would try to make shidduchim, try to make matches. And now we have an interesting Gemara to finish off. Miyuchaso shebahen hayu omros. The Mishnah had said that the miyuchasos, those from a good lineage, would say, and the Mishnah said, our Gemara doesn't quote this line, the Mishnah, they would say, I think actually this part isn't actually in the Mishnah. This is already quoting the Brisa. The Mishnah said that they would go out, Umahayu omros, and what would they say? They would say, Bachor, young man, Sama, Einecha, Re'eh ma tabarocha, raise up your eyes, see what you choose. Titeng enecha b'noi, teng enecha b'mishpacha. That's what it said. It's the same idea that it's quoting about. They would say, don't look at beauty, look at the mishpacha, look at the family, look at the lineage, the yichus. That's what you should look at. The Gemara, we'll see, has a little bit more. There were different categories. Not everybody had good yichus. Not everybody had great lineage. But each type of girl would say something different. So it says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Yaf yafos shebahen mahayu omros. What would the most beautiful ones say? They would say, Tanu einechem yofi. They would tell the boys, look for beauty. Shenga isha el yofi. That literally a woman is only for beauty. They said this is what's important. What's important is beauty. Look at beauty. Miyuchasos shebahen mahayu omros. And what would the miyuchasos? What would the people of good lineage, the girls who came from a good family, what would they say? So they would say, put your eyes upon the family, look at the family, look at where we come from, look at our lineage. Because what's the purpose of a wife? A wife is to have children, they would say. And if you want good children, you should choose a wife from a good family, from good lineage. And then it says, Mechu'aro shebahem, literally the ugly ones, the less attractive ones, those who didn't have either of these things going for them. They didn't have beauty, they didn't have lineage, they didn't have yichus. Mahayu omros, what would they say? They would say, Kechu mekchachem l'shum shamayim. They would say you should take a wife for the sake of heaven. Take it l'shem shamayim. But then they would throw something, as long as you crown us in gold jewelry. So they would say, take us l'shem shamayim, but we like some jewelry. It's actually a bit astonishing, right? Because if you think about it, they're the ones who are making the demands. These are the ones who don't have anything special going for them. They're not beautiful, they don't have good lineage. They're described as the ugly ones, those who were not of great beauty. So how could it be that they're the ones making the demands? They're saying, take us l'shem shamayim, which makes sense because it's for the sake of heaven. They don't have anything special about them, just do it for the sake of heaven. But as long as you crown us in jewelry. Perhaps the idea is that they are saying you have to learn to appreciate us. And if you give to us and you show appreciation for us, then your actions will affect your mindset. Famous idea that from the Mesilas Yesharim, that our actions impact our mindset. If you act kindly, then you will learn to appreciate her. That's one possible idea. Rabbi Aryeh Levine, quoted by his grandson, Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, says a different idea. He says that really all of them were saying, take a wife l'shem shamayim. But they were both coming with a different claim. The ones that were beautiful said, you should marry a beautiful girl. That way you'll only look at your wife, and you won't look at other women, because your wife is very beautiful. And they were also saying, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. The ones who had good lineage, they said, take it l'shem shamayim. They said, there's a better l'shem shamayim. You don't need a beautiful wife. You want to be really l'shem shamayim, don't take a beautiful wife. But not only that, but take someone who's going to have good lineage and good children. What's more l'shem shamayim? What's more for the sake of heaven than to produce good offspring, upstanding generations? And then the mechuaros, those who didn't have either of these things going for them, they would say, no, even that, you still get extra honor. That's not quite l'shem shamayim. If you do it if you are taking a beautiful wife, even if you're doing it for good purposes, but it's not fully l'shem shamayim because, after all, she's beautiful. And if you're doing it for the lineage, even if it's to have good children, but after all, you're still getting kavod, you're getting honor from it. They said, you want to really do it l'shem shamayim, so take someone who doesn't have either of those things going for them. But they said, 1 second though. For it to be really l'shem shamayim, we can't have it that you're saving money off of it. Right? Certainly if you marry a beautiful girl and someone of good lineage, you will be expected to pay the price, so to speak, to buy her jewelry, etc. So they said, if you want to really do l'shem shamayim, marry us and still buy us jewelry. Because that way you're not saving any money by marrying us. And then it's fully l'shem shemaim. It's completely for the sake of heaven. That's how Rabbi Aryeh Levine explained it. Amar Ula B'yira. Last Gemara, amazing Gemara. Amar Ula B'yira. Ula B'yira, that's where I guess his name or a place where he came from. He said, Amar Rabbi Elazar, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, Asir HaKadosh Baruch Hu La'asos Machol Latzadikim. In the future, at the end of time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, God is going to make a circle for the tzaddikim, for the righteous ones. V'u yeshev beineim beGan Eden. And He's going to sit between them in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, which is a way of referring to the world to come. They call Echad ve'echad mare be'etzbo. And each of the people in the circle will point with their finger. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, ve'amar bayom hahu, and he will say on that day, this is a pasuk in Yeshaya, that on that day, on that great day, he will say, Hinei Elokeinu zeh, behold, this is our God, kivinu lo, we have hoped for Him, v'yoshienu, He should save us, zeh Hashem kivinu lo, this is God that we have hoped for, nagila v'nismecha bishuaso, let us celebrate, let us rejoice in His salvation. That when we experience that salvation and we are, and at the end of days, and there will be, so to speak, it's hard to understand exactly what this means, but that the righteous ones, Hashem will make a circle and they'll be able to surround, they'll say, this is Hashem our God. They say in the name of Rabbi Akiva Eger that he explained this to mean that each person, there are different ways that people approach Avodas Hashem, service of God. Now, they have to each be within the Ratzon Hashem, the will of God, within following Hashem's instructions in the Torah. But that can manifest itself in different ways. We have Ashkenaz, we have Sfard, we have Hasidish, right? We have all types of ways to serve Hashem. And at the end of time, they're all going to stand and they're saying, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo, this is the God that we were serving. And they're all part of the circle. We're all part of the same circle, even if we're serving Hashem in different ways. But it's the same Hashem. And that's what this, according to Rabbi Akiva Eger, what this imagery is supposed to describe. Hadran alach b'shlosha prakim. We will return to you this chapter titled b'shlosha prakim at 3 times. That was the name of the first words of the chapter. Usliko la Maseches Taanis. And we conclude you Maseches Taanis. Mazel tov on finishing at Maseches Taanis. It's a wonderful celebration, a wonderful accomplishment. And I hope if you're seeing this before Monday night, you'll join us still for the Siyum on Monday night. The information is in your inbox. It's a virtual Siyum. You can join us from home. And please sign up to join us again to learn Maseches Kiddushin with us, which will start next week. We're going to do a sign up. Go to the website. Either go to your email or go to the website gwckollel.org/OntheSamePage, and there you'll find a link to sign up. And so that we put you back on the email list for the new Masechta, please sign up. Mazel tov again, and I look forward to learning with you Maseches Kiddushin.